Hello everyone, welcome back to Global Alert TV, your trusted source for world updates, geopolitical analysis, and real-time coverage of global conflicts. Today's report takes us straight into the heart of one of the most daring and mysterious operations of the war, a Ukrainian drone strike deep inside Russian territory, targeting what experts call the nerve center of Moscow's long-range radar network. The story is unfolding like a scene out of a modern military thriller. Small, silent machines flying hundreds of kilometers into heavily defended Russian airspace to hit a target few believed could ever be touched, a strategic radar that forms part of Russia's missile early warning system. But what really happened? How far did those drones fly? And what does this mean for the future of the war between Russia and Ukraine? Let's uncover the full story, right here on Global Alert TV. It all began in the early hours of a calm morning when reports started flooding in from the Orenburg region in southeastern Russia. Locals claimed they heard a distant explosion near Orsk, followed by a strange hum that vanished into silence. Minutes later, unverified videos surfaced on Telegram and X, showing faint flashes near what many believed was Russia's Voronezh M radar installation, a massive early warning system built to detect nuclear missiles and long-range threats. Ukraine's defense intelligence would later confirm that drones had been launched for one of the deepest strike missions in its history, nearly 1,500 kilometers beyond the front lines. The intended target, a radar station so critical that it forms part of Russia's nuclear defense shield. For years, these radar systems were considered untouchable. Built during the height of the Cold War, they are spread across Russia's vast territory to ensure the Kremlin can detect incoming missile threats from anywhere on the planet. The Voronezh M system, in particular, is not just another military base, it's a symbol of strategic dominance. Its sensors watch the skies from the Arctic to the Middle East. So when Ukraine reportedly managed to send a drone all the way to this facility, it wasn't just an attack, it was a message. A message that said, your deepest defenses are no longer safe. Analysts around the world were stunned. Military experts began piecing together how such a long-range strike could even be possible. Ukrainian engineers have been working quietly for months on indigenous long-range drones, low-cost, GPS-guided, and designed to fly under radar coverage. Some reports suggest these drones are made from lightweight composites, powered by engines barely louder than a lawnmower, and can travel for hours undetected. For Ukraine, this was a major step forward, a leap from short-range tactical drones used at the front lines to strategic strike capabilities capable of hitting Russia's heartland. Within hours, Russian state media rushed to control the narrative. They claimed the drone had been shot down before reaching its target, insisting that no damage was done. Yet, satellite imagery analysts who examined the area soon noticed signs of disturbance near the radar compound, burn marks, debris trails, and what looked like a damaged maintenance building. Nothing conclusive, but enough to raise questions. Kyiv's officials, as usual, neither confirmed nor denied details, keeping the air thick with ambiguity. In warfare, perception is often as powerful as fact, and this incident perfectly illustrated that. As the news spread, panic quietly rippled through Russian defense circles. If Ukraine could reach Orsk, more than 1,000 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory, what else could it hit next? Oil depots, communication centers, or even strategic command hubs deep within Russia, this was no longer just a border conflict, it was a technological arms race. Ukrainian drone programs had matured faster than many Western analysts expected, combining Western-supplied tech with locally engineered designs. The message was clear, the war's boundaries were changing. Meanwhile, inside Ukraine, the mood was defiant. Soldiers and citizens saw this operation as proof of ingenuity, a David vs. Goliath moment. Social media buzzed with pride and disbelief. They thought they could hide, one Ukrainian commenter wrote. Now we've shown them nowhere is safe. But even as celebration spread online, Kyiv's leadership remained cautious. They knew every action like this came with consequences. Targeting a strategic radar, especially one tied to Russia's nuclear detection network, could provoke unpredictable retaliation. This wasn't just about destroying metal and wires, it was about psychological warfare. Western observers watched closely. NATO analysts expressed both admiration and concern. On one hand, Ukraine had achieved something remarkable, a demonstration of long-range precision capabilities without Western cruise missiles. On the other, it raised dangerous questions. What if Russia viewed this as an attack on its nuclear deterrence system? Such a perception could escalate tensions far beyond Ukraine's borders. Still, Kyiv's calculation seemed deliberate. to remind Moscow that even its most sacred military assets were vulnerable. Days after the strike, Russian officials released footage claiming to show normal operations at the radar site, as if nothing had happened. But defense insiders whispered otherwise. Some reports indicated that parts of the system had been temporarily taken offline for inspection. Others said the strike, though not catastrophic, forced Russia to move air defense units from the front lines to protect deep radar installations. In a war of attrition, even small diversions of manpower and equipment can have long-term effects. Ukraine's strategy appeared to be working, not just by destroying, but by stretching Russia thinner and thinner. The Voronezh M radar is part of a chain of early warning systems that Russia relies on to detect potential ballistic missile launches. Losing even partial functionality at one of these sites can create blind spots in coverage, reducing reaction time during a crisis. If Ukraine's drone strike managed to cause even minor disruptions, it could temporarily compromise Russia's perception of incoming threats, a risk the Kremlin cannot afford. In that sense, even a limited success would be strategically significant. As the story evolved, new details began to emerge. Satellite imagery showed increased activity around the Orsk site, new fencing, construction materials, and what looked like mobile radar replacements. That alone confirmed Russia was taking the incident seriously. Meanwhile, Ukrainian defense officials hinted that this was not the last strike of its kind. Indeed, just months later, similar reports surfaced from Voronezh and Krasnodar, suggesting a pattern. Ukraine was systematically testing the limits of Russian air defense. Beyond the battlefield, the strike sent ripples across the global stage. For the West, it proved that even without advanced Western long-range missiles, Ukraine had found its own way to retaliate deep inside Russian territory. For Moscow, it was a wake-up call, a reminder that distance no longer guarantees safety. And for the watching world, it was a glimpse into the future of warfare, small, autonomous, low-cost systems capable of bypassing billion-dollar defense shields. Military historians began comparing the event to pivotal moments in past wars when technology changed the rules, like the first use of drones in the Gulf War or the advent of stealth aircraft. But this time, the innovation wasn't coming from a superpower. It was coming from a country under siege, improvising under pressure, turning necessity into invention. This, perhaps, is what makes the story of Ukraine's drone war so remarkable. By the third week after the radar incident, Russian forces had reportedly redeployed several S-400 systems to guard critical infrastructure. Moscow also began relocating high-value radar stations further east, away from the reach of Ukraine's drones. Each relocation meant less immediate coverage for the western skies, a small but measurable strategic loss. Ukraine, meanwhile, was believed to be testing even longer-range versions of its drones, capable of traveling over 2,000 kilometers. The message was clear: the game had changed forever. Inside Russia, ordinary citizens were starting to feel the pressure too. What had once been distant explosions in border regions were now creeping closer to their cities. Social media posts from deep within Russia began showing fragments of drones, air defense sirens, and mysterious night flashes. For many Russians, this was the first time they truly understood that the war was no longer somewhere out there. It had arrived at their doorstep. Ukraine's strategic communication also evolved. Rather than claim responsibility outright, officials used ambiguity to their advantage. Silence became part of the weapon. Each time an explosion occurred in a remote part of Russia, speculation grew: was it Ukraine? Was it sabotage? Was it an accident? This uncertainty itself created fear, a kind of psychological fog of war that worked in Kyiv's favor. Russia, unable to admit vulnerabilities, was forced to downplay incidents, even as its citizens began demanding answers. Behind the scenes, Western intelligence agencies were quietly impressed. Reports suggested that Ukraine's drone program was now integrating AI-assisted flight control, making navigation more efficient and precise. These drones weren't random kamikazes anymore, they were part of an evolving strategic doctrine. Ukraine had found a way to balance cost, precision, and range, creating a deterrence tool that could harass Russia deep inside its borders without using Western-provided long-range missiles. As months passed, the incident became a turning point in modern military thinking. The Voronezh M strike entered defense briefings and war colleges as a case study in asymmetric innovation. It showed that in the age of drones, even the largest nations are vulnerable to small, intelligent threats. It also underlined a deeper truth, that in this conflict, information warfare is as powerful as firepower. Whether the radar was destroyed or not almost didn't matter. What mattered was perception, the story itself. For the Kremlin, perception was the real damage. A narrative was spreading that Russia's once invincible defense infrastructure could be breached. It forced Moscow to respond symbolically, launching waves of missiles at Ukrainian energy sites, a show of strength intended to restore deterrence. But each new barrage cost millions of dollars, while Ukraine's drones cost only thousands. The imbalance was staggering. By the time the world moved on to new headlines, the message of that single drone strike lingered in the minds of generals and strategists alike. It had shown that the future of warfare was not about who had the biggest bomb, but who could adapt faster, think smarter, and strike deeper, sometimes without even being seen. And in that contest, Ukraine had proven something remarkable. Technology and determination can, at least for a moment, level the playing field against overwhelming odds. So, what really happened after? Ukrainian drones struck Russia's largest radar. The truth is this: whether the radar still stands or lies in repair, its aura of invincibility is gone. The attack reshaped how both sides view distance, safety, and control. It opened a new chapter where wars are fought not just by armies, but by engineers, coders, and inventors. The battlefield has expanded, and so has the risk. As this story continues to unfold, one thing remains certain: the war between Ukraine and Russia is no longer confined to front lines or trenches. It's a war of innovation, of endurance, and of imagination. Each side is adapting faster than the world expected. And for those watching from afar, this incident is a warning: the age of unreachable targets is over. You're watching Global Alert TV, and this is more than just a report, it's a glimpse into the future of conflict, where technology decides the tempo of war. Stay tuned, stay aware, and remember, in today's world, even silence in the sky can be a sign that something extraordinary is about to happen.